All right.
Yes.
Thank you everyone for being here. It's a real pleasure to kind of kick off our sessions here after the summer. So I'm Fernanda Tour. I'm the operations director for Boards Impact Forum. We also have with us Liselott Engstam and our esteemed guests that we are also going to introduce a bit further. Thank you, Thomas Sirjanen, for being here, Henrik Forselius, and Mats Magnusson. And today we are going to talk about board's AI leadership, ambition and transformation. And we're going to, in a few seconds, just tell a bit more about what we mean by that. So our plan for today is the following. We are going to start with a very short introduction. This is me right now. We are going to have a bit of an overview around the board's evolving role when it comes to disruption and renewal by Professor Mats Magnusson and Henrik Forselius. Then we are going to have a presentation from Tuomas Sirjanen, with a bit concrete cases on how to do this and really how to guide the adoption and then enabling the transformation from the board perspective. Then we have a poll, we have some questions, and we go into breakout rooms to discuss them. Then we come back together and we share our thoughts and our discussions around these questions, and then we wrap up with some conclusions and what's coming next for Board's Impact Forum. So a bit of webinar etiquette. You probably have seen this several times, but just to make sure that we are on the same page. We would like you to be muted, and we will be muting the audience in the first part. And we are going to remove all the AI assistants. So we just want us to be here together. But we are recording this first part of the session. So these presentations and this we record and we make available later in our website. Please use the chat for comments, thoughts, ideas, references. I've seen this, I've seen that, really make use of the chat. And if you have any kind of technical issues, just make sure to drop us an email. So before we get started, we always have this little introduction. What is Board's Impact Forum? And for those of you who are joining us for the first time, we are the Nordic chapter from the Climate Governance Initiative from the World Economic Forum. So there are different chapters in different parts of the world, and we work across the Nordics. So we are saying Sweden, Finland, Norway, Denmark, and Iceland. And we try to engage board directors when it comes to climate governance, to sustainability, and AI. So we have several board directors that are our members. You're welcome to become a member. We have been driving a lot of events, and we have two training programs that we are very, very proud about. One on AI, which is the specific team that we are approaching here today, based in our research that is soon to be published now in November in a book, and the other program on sustainability. We are also very proud of that program because it's approved by the Climate Governance Initiative. So it's like us and 7 others in the whole world that have this program. And we work across the different board networks in the Nordics. So we really want to collaborate and be part of building this Nordic ecosystem for governance. We are very happy to always have quite a few international participants in our webinars also. So if you want to get involved, support us in any way, if you want to learn more, please just reach out. Just drop us an email, come in contact with me, and we can make it happen. Now, for the topic that we are discussing here today, I just wanted to very, very quickly give a very, very short background about the framework that is going to guide us across this webinar, but also some of the events coming next. We had this research that we got the funding in 2018. Seems like a lifetime ago, and we published this first version in 2020. So what we've realized is that this first version of the research did stand the challenge of time, and a lot of the assumptions and the hypotheses were indeed verified. So we thought that it was really worth updating that research. That initial research had been made with Combient and with the support of Innova, that's the Swedish innovation agency. And now we got support from Internet Stiftelse to update this research. So conducted by myself, Liselott Engstam, that is here with us, Professor Robin Tegland from Chalmers, and Professor Stanislav Chesnia from INSEAD. So the result from that research. This research, I can put the link in the chat also. It's going to be officially published on the 16th of November. That's the latest date that we have, but you can pre-order already if you're interested. So this research led us to this framework that is really the framework that is guiding our way of thinking around AI and boards. As you can see, you have here the roof of this house, and the roof is the topic that we are addressing today, leading the strategic ambition, the strategy, leadership, talent, workforce transformation, how to drive AI from this strategic perspective. There's other parts of this house. You will see that the foundations are the boards themselves, their accountability, the role, the competence, the structure. So really starting by looking internally at themselves, us, the board, and then balancing both capabilities and supervision together with a strong element of sustainability and this strategic ambition. So this is a bit the framework that we are using, and today we are going to be talking here about the roof. Now, without further ado, I would like to give the word to our dear presenters and collaborators for some time, Mats Magnusson and Henrik Fuselius. So Mats is a professor of product innovation engineering and vice head of the School of Industrial Engineering and Management at KTH. That's the School of Technology here in Stockholm. And he's a permanent visiting professor at Luis University in Rome, and the chair of the Continuous Innovation Network. And we also have with us Henrik Roselius, that is doing his PhD exactly on this topic of boards and governance, and has a super extensive experience when it comes to information technology, services industry, and also working with boards. Thank you so much for being here, and please take it away.
Thank you. Henrik, are you sharing the pictures? Good. You're muted, Henrik.
So, thank you very much for the introduction, and thank you for having us here. I'd like to start with this picture that you probably have seen because it's sort of going viral the last weeks on Facebook and others, right? So it starts up with someone calling, "Who are we? We are the CEOs. What do we want? AI. AI to do what? We don't know. When do we want it? Right now." And I think this is quite typical how you can see it from different perspectives. I recently heard a large company in Sweden using this to present to the co-workers, the staff, that they want to experiment with AI to get to increase the level of understanding what AI is. But they also realized that the workforce thought they had no plans at all from the management. And that is how it could be seen, of course. But we are going to talk about the boards, and this goes for the boards as well in relationship to the management. And the reason for that is AI is quite different from other challenges. AI is a disruption for sure, The problem with this disruption is that we don't know where it's going to go because it hasn't really happened yet. It is happening right now, and it is evolving. And this goes into a research that we are currently doing and finalizing together with Lisa Lott as well. And what we found out is, first of all, that disruptions are very different. We're talking about disruptions as something that happens suddenly. But we also find out that there are another aspect of it, which is our gradual disruptions. So what I want to show you here is a graph or a model. If we start from the left, is when something is evolving, it has a high uncertainty, like AI. And then it moves with time, and it evolves, and you get a better and better understanding of what it is. And eventually it will reach a tipping point when people start learning about what this is. And now it's a risk of not doing anything. And the risk is greater and greater. So if you look to the left, to the uncertainty, we can see that disruptions that are involving, let's call it gradual, we call it gradual disruptions. And then it moves over to become more risk, and it comes as abrupt if you're not ready for it. And it has a tipping point. The problem with AI is that it goes so fast. The problem is that you can't wait until you understand it to know exactly what's going to do and have a traditional project planning. So you have to act before the tipping point. You have to start exploring it. And that's changed very much the traditional way of governance between the board and the management, when the board traditionally monitors what you are doing. And you decide together, and the board eventually decides on strategic plans and on projects, and you do follow up. And that requires that you have a very clear picture of what you want to do and where you want to go. But when it is evolving gradually, it's more about uncertainty. So you don't know. You have to explore it step by step, because behaviors are also changing on the ways. You cannot do market research, for example, and find out exactly what the customers want. You have to develop it together with development of our behaviors in partners and customers and competition.
That is annoying when they start to.
Sure. Yeah, so I will continue. So we've done research, and we tried out different disruptions, such as COVID, which was abrupt, and also with the Russian aggression on Ukraine, which is an abrupt that came very quickly. And then we compared with more gradual abruptions like AI. And what we could see that abrupt disruptions such as AI is harder to handle for boards. However, boards are pretty clear that they have a higher impact on the companies. But what we also could see is that we had behaviors that difference between the boards, and that boards with a proactive behavior are better in handling AI. And proactive, what we looked in our study was what do proactive board do when it comes to strategy and transformation, and that is something that Mats very soon is going to present. We also could see that proactive boards had a significant relationship with innovation, strategy, and competition performance as well. So there is a changing way of acting as a board when meeting gradual disruptions with a very high pace. So I will now let Mats tell you more about the findings, the practices that proactive boards are using.
Thank you very much, Henrik. Yes, when facing gradual disruptions, there was a small typo on the former slide. The main observation we have is really that the boards that are proactive stand out in terms of their performance. Just a few words about why AI is very particular technology, but also perhaps a very typical gradual disruption. I mean, the key thing with AI is that it's applicable almost everywhere. It's a general purpose technology. That would be the term we would use for it. It can be used to improve almost everything. But there is another aspect of AI that makes it rather unique, so that it qualifies among a few technologies that actually change the world. And that is what we call an invention that changes the way we invent. So basically, it allows us to do new things in a completely new way. And if we look out through the human history, we see a couple of those. The optical lens is one. By discovering the optical lens, we could see cosmos and microcosmos. We could look into our blood. We could look out into space. We could discover things that we couldn't see before. The computer, we could suddenly calculate things in an efficient way, allowing us to actually make calculations, predictions that we couldn't do before. AI is there among those groundbreaking, world-changing technologies. It deals with data, and it allows us to see and create things in a new way that we couldn't do before. But it doesn't happen abruptly. Actually, of course, you all know we've been dealing with AI since the 60s in several generations. And the key thing here is there is so much uncertainty, there are so many opportunities, but they are not there to be, they're not there just to be seen by us. They will not hit us. They can only be discovered by doing things. And that is the basis here for this idea of the proactive board. And it changes the way the board acts internally and with management and also with external stakeholders. And what we find, and now I will try to summarize a large piece of research here in a few words. The first thing is the importance that the board actually engage in independent foresight activities. Many boards rely on management to get a lot of their information. Management may actually have a view that is very, very much influenced by the company they're working in, the environment, their experiences. And that is something we in academia call functional fixedness, that you have your own expertise and that is biasing what you see. So for the board, in order to be actually capable of both challenging and supporting management, needs to have its own source of information, which is not filtered through management or biased by management's functional fitness. And this may actually help us out to see things earlier or better and support management in dealing with the real issues, not what maybe they thought were the issues. One traditional but still very helpful way of doing this is scenario analysis or scenario planning. Basically trying to think of other futures than the one we take normally for granted. So basically go beyond just extrapolating the present, but challenging some fundamental things in the environment. So please go on, Henrik. So the information we get is important, that is unbiased and unfiltered to the largest extent, and that we use actually the vast knowledge that we normally have in a board with people with different backgrounds, different expertise, different sets of knowledge. But it also changes the process of strategizing. Board should, of course, be involved in one way or another in formulating and deciding upon the strategy. But given that things are moving so fast and are so uncertain, more traditional approaches where we have an annual wheel are basically not good enough any longer. And if we have abrupt disruptions where things suddenly happen, we cannot foresee that. We just have to react on that. What we actually see in our research is that most boards are quite good at dealing with that. Whereas for the gradual disruptions, we see huge differences between the ones who are really embracing a proactive way of working, which includes a much more iterative and continuous strategy work. Which actually consists of a lot of small probes, pilots, experiments. When there is uncertainty, we can only have assumptions. However, the important thing is to know if those assumptions are right or wrong. So when we think about what AI can do, let's actually formulate it as a hypothesis or an experiment or a test, and then we should find an efficient and effective way of actually testing that hypothesis or assumption. One way of also getting this really done and make sure that it doesn't disappear in all the other board work that you are involved in is to actually use different types of committees, strategy committee or a temporary committee dealing with, for instance, AI or innovation. And of course, this also includes that at every board meeting, this is actually an item on the agenda. There are incremental reviews and decisions every single meeting. Please go on, Henrik. Also, this, of course, requires a change in mindset. Henrik talked about risk before, and to be really put this in a very straightforward way, the biggest risk you're all running is the risk of not taking risk, the lack of action. That is the paradox of risk that we're talking about since quite some time. We could, of course, see that risks are always one side of the coin, the other one is an opportunity. And basically, this requires a shift in the view we have, especially at the board. This is problematic as we are there to safeguard the company in many ways. And we know that a lot of our work is on making sure that we're not making too big mistakes, that we are actually working on the compliance side. And that may actually make it very difficult for the board to embrace more positive risk-taking where we see that actually we are dealing with opportunities. Henrik, you can move on. Also, when it comes to AI, another problem is, of course, that AI is not something that is only happening inside a specific firm. It very much happens in interaction and in combination with other stakeholders. They could be of very different types. Of course, we have our shareholders and so on, but we also have partners, suppliers, and society at large. And one important thing here is, of course, that we need to approach this in a more open way. We've talked about open innovation for several decades now. When it comes to AI, this is a great opportunity to use what we have learned there. But actually, we should tap into our different partners in business and actually work on our strategies together, which is not easy at all, of course. But in order to do so, what we see in our studies is that we really need to focus on having trust, inclusiveness, and openness in our entire innovation ecosystem, so that we share information with each other and we also conduct experiments together. Henrik, you can go on. And finally, of course, for those of you who have a role of a chair, this also has implications for you. If we should actually move towards a way of working with AI in a strategic way, that requires that we go on, we experiment, and we also fail at times because all our experiments will not show what we wanted them to show. And also we will be wrong at times in a situation where there is high uncertainty. So this really puts the finger to the importance of trust, inclusiveness, and openness in the board. We will not benefit from the knowledge of our board members if they are not allowed or able to speak up and share their views, even though sometimes they will be wrong. Everyone will be wrong at times when things are uncertain. So basically, trust, inclusiveness, and openness is fundamental, and we have to work on how we create that in the boardroom. And of course, how we create that in relation to management. Because we will at times be wrong, they will at times be wrong, and we need to act together, accepting that actually we are in a more experimental mode, so some hypotheses basically won't function. This shifts the chair's role very much from a ceremonial where we do all the things according to the agenda in a very, very traditional way, to basically being a team leader for the board and also to some extent for management. And to make that even more problematic, and you know this because you are in this situation, we also have to handle the paradoxical coexistence of monitoring and controlling and at the same time collaborating and innovating together. We have in our work a number of very detailed practices that can help out here. We hope that that work will soon be out, and we can get back to that later on discussions. Thank you very much for this opportunity to share our work.
Super. Thank you. Thank you so much for being here. Let me just quickly share my screen just for a second to introduce our next speaker, Thomas Sirien. And thank you so much for being with us, Thomas, again. Thomas is the co-founder and now chair at Futuris and leads its AI renewal program. Thomas holds a position, has been the CEO at Futuris and now holds very different board positions in Finland, and it's always a pleasure to listen to Thomas talk, because he really brings this very insider perspective on how these things works. Kind of, you can see that he has gotten his hands dirty on AI, and it's really delightful to hear him speak, because he can really share his insights, and also from a board perspective, which is really, really amazing. So welcome back, Thomas. It's a pleasure to have you here with us again. If you can maybe share your screen.
Yes, thank you. So let me share my screen. And I guess all good. Everybody can see it. Yes. All right. Hey, pleasure to be here. And so let me talk about the guiding AI adoption, and then also enabling how boards can also enable this transformation. So I start with a little bit of framing, how I look at this overall, and then let's go deeper into the board roles. But hey, actually, in the previous presentations, there were this really good cartoon about that everybody wants AI, but the question is what to do with it. I have a slightly different angle to that, because this is my favorite slide that is in every single presentation that I've held probably during the past 3 years, and this is Mythbuster Adam Savage, who has taken the really great Boston Dynamics AI-powered robot dog and put it in front of 100-year-old rickshaw. And why do I like this slide so much is that unfortunately this is a typical technology initiative, that we take the latest and the greatest technology and we bolt it onto 100-year-old ways of working. And then we are wondering that why doesn't it actually bring any result? And apparently now my browser crashed. 2 heavy messages.
I think it is a great moment to crash, because it was exactly what you were talking about.
Yes. But I got it now back, and
for a second there I was thinking, oh, this is a new slide. This didn't work out. That's a nice.
Yes, but hey, let's move on, and now, but then I think the other topic that, let's not go into details, but then this is the other extreme that I had a different kind of pleasure of being part of, like what if we challenge the whole industry convention? So in grocery retail, what if instead of like deciding that we are either centrally driven or locally driven, so customer centric or synergistic, we decided we are both, because data and AI can handle the complexity. Or this construction transformation is much broader than technology, but it's about what if we actually try to get results, or not try, what if we go after results via changing the industry paradigm from chaotic project paradigm into industrial assembly. And the result has been that instead of building in 1.5 years, we are now building in the record is 7 months, but there's like 8 and 9 month cases. So reducing the cycle time end to end to half, and so on. But let's not go into that details. I think that let's move on. But then going back to the technology topic, and this is actually why I think that it's really good that we are also here discussing. So the development of technology. And even this Ethan Mollick's quote is already old. He's quoting regarding O3 and Gemini 2.5. But his point is that even if we would stop technology development now, there would be like 10 years worth of work to be done to actually apply it. And that's the same, the sort of the picture that actually technology is developing fast, even some can say that exponential curve, but our ability to harness AI into different kind of processes, different kind of customer value, or even wholly different kind of paradigm is on a linear curve. And that's the sort of the responsibility of bridging that gap is, in my opinion, mostly on the business side. Business people need to want to do something differently. And of course, there needs to be a vision how to do things differently. For example, like discussed, that what if we are not only centrally driven or only locally driven? What if we are both at the same time, and similar ones. Good. Maybe today it's not the time to go into different kind of sort of like use cases, but I think that, for example, one of the favorite use case that I have is that like complex B2B sales and reducing the cycle time end to end, maybe 70%, 80% of that. And that requires both technology, but it especially requires changing the ways of working, changing the process, changing the roles in the process. And that is typically much harder than actually the technology. Or what if we can capture the whole organizational knowledge, and what if we can use that to actually become proactive towards customers instead of being reactive? Or like, what if the legal department's role in the future is not to be part of personally every single sort of legal related case, but their role is to actually create and provide technology for everybody in the front line to do things by themselves. And I think this is again changing quite a lot of the organizational paradigm. How do we think about processes, and how do we think about control and those kind of things? Good. But I would like to address this whole transformation from the board point of view from a few different angles. So personal productivity, these are like co-pilots and all sorts of sort of like in software development, like Cursor and so on. Then there's the transforming processes. This is actually where typically the first real results start to be seen, so that we actually, for example, reduce the cycle time of the complex B2B sales from weeks to days. Then the next level of course, how does it actually influence our offerings? And then how do we maybe even redefine the whole value creation or the whole paradigm in the industry? But let me start how I see that boards can be part of the transformation. So number one, I would say that for the personal productivity, it's really important for the boards to be an example. And what does it mean? For example, it can mean that, first of all, of course, we need to have tools, but I think that if and when boards are actively using these tools, for example, this is just a screenshot from actually yesterday. We had our own board meeting, and I set up this kind of like Google agent space setup where I was able to analyze the board material with the help of AI. So I created all sorts of different kind of like angles and viewpoints that I wanted to check. I wanted to check like discrepancies, misalignment topics. I wanted to see that what if our agenda would be this? How would that be reflected in the material? How aligned the material would be? And it allowed me to do a lot of different kind of analysis cycles, maybe 10 times faster than without these kind of tools. And the point is not to replace the dialogue and the debate in the board. The point is to actually improve the dialogue and the debate, or market analysis and so on. I think the number 1 and 2, as long as the boards are provided with a sort of safe tools to use by organization, are rather straightforward. And then of course later on, there's an opportunity, for example, to tap into more data, tap into sort of more free-flowing data that actually the boards can also use to also actually get a better perspective internally and externally. Maybe also on the number 2, which is maybe a bit advanced case, but I'm, for example, personally using quite often. I'm actually quite often using all sorts of alternative external data like job listings, news analytics to analyze market trends related to the topics that are discussed in the board. But I would say quite often there's a tendency to see that the boards are the last place where the change happens. So I would encourage every board to be an example and push for this. Interestingly, also what I've seen is that there are now more and more these kind of personal coaches for leaders and board members, so that in case there is sort of like a little bit of hesitancy or like difficulty of getting up to speed, maybe asking someone to join at home for a couple of hours to support with these tools. Good. Next level. What should be the role of boards in this transforming processes? I think there are a couple of things that the board should ensure that happening. First of all, like this is not for the board, in my opinion, to actually say or decide, but it actually ensure that it has been chosen like relevant domains, whether it's like sales or R&D or similar. Then I would say that if the presentations to the board are only held by IT people or technical people, then I would see there's a red flag. I think there needs to be a business people who say that I want to do something differently. Then it starts to be grounded in the real world. Then I would say that board needs to be expect like hard KPIs. Where is it visible? And for example, saved working time is not a hard KPI for me because it's really difficult to actually measure and it's typically lost in the organization. But cycle time is a hard KPI, or like selling proactively to 10,000 customers is a hard KPI, but it needs to be a KPI that is visible somewhere in the business. In the most extreme cases, I see that actually already been sort of like taken into account in budgeting, but maybe that might be sometimes a bit. So if there's like a cost saving plans, then okay, that is then already that money taken out next year from the budget to ensure that actually it is concrete and visible. Maybe I don't recommend that one, but there needs to be a hard KPI. And then of course ensure that there's new thinking, that we are not just like applying technology to old thinking. So just a couple of examples, what does it mean? This is actually going back to the speed. So I would say that this is the most common business pattern that I've seen is that increase process speed, end-to-end process speed, meaning that we augment the people in the process. So we provide external insights, we provide access to organizational knowledge like past solutions, organizational knowledge so well that people can have broader roles, whether this is in customer service or sales or whatever process. We have less handovers. When we have less handovers, the process moves faster, and we can even sometimes codify, for example, legal checks into technology. So we don't need to actually even involve individual lawyers in the process, but we still have a very good control, legal control in the process. And again, this kind of like new thinking is like the example that I've been given already 2 times is that in order, for example, to think differently about processes and legal compliance or legal control, there needs to be this thinking that, hey, we can codify legal compliance into technology and not have it as a separate process step. Or like one of my sort of like favorite ways of looking at things that I think in manufacturing, we moved to lean cells already a couple of tens of years ago. But it's still knowledge work is very much this kind of linear. We are passing papers from one department to another. But I see that is changing now that we actually are building these lean AI-powered lean cells for knowledge workers. For example, let's take an individual salesperson, and that salesperson is augmented knowledge from customer insight, pricing, legal, all sorts of different angles of the organization, which traditionally required a personal involvement of those people. But now that individual salesperson can complete the task him or herself. And then we actually get a completely new level of process performance. And I think that what I'm trying to say here is that boards need to ask and see that somebody has been thinking differently. How do we want to run the organization and not just bring technology into existing ways of working? Thirdly, enhanced offerings. And there's like, I think one question is, I would say that board needs to ensure that we are clear about our ambition level. And let me give a little example. CRMs. Of course, we have like classic CRMs. Then cloud took over, but still the kind of paradigm is still the same. I would like a little bit like black and white, but I think CRM paradigm has traditionally been that force people to follow process and consolidate information for management. There hasn't been very strong sort of angle of helping salespeople to succeed. Now, when the AI came, all CRM providers created AI on top of the existing CRM paradigm, which means that maybe you have better access to easier access to information and so on, but they're still working in the old paradigm. I would say that they are classic CRMs using AI. But now there's a new paradigm arising. There's lots of different startups going after a new CRM paradigm, which is based on the fact that how can we help salespeople to succeed? Automatically give next best actions, automatically coach, automatically analyze the content all the time to help them to succeed. And that, in my opinion, is more like an AI native CRM paradigm. And now the question that all the companies need to be thinking that, are we a company or offering using AI, or can we build AI native offerings? And which one makes sense and at what point? And finally, the board need to ensure that there's enough time to entertain the thinking that how might we think differently about this whole? How can we, for example, be both centrally and locally driven? How can we be at the same time local and global? How can we be same time cost efficiency leader and customer centricity leader, which in classic terms were not possible to at the same time, but AI is removing these constraints. So that's why there are a couple of things that I think that the board need to be aware and also ensure that there's enough time to think about this topic. So just to give you a couple of like drivers that I see that are happening. First of all, cost of individuality is going towards zero. And we have taken it for granted for tens of years that individuality costs. That's why we have customer segments. That's why we have employee pools. What if that is not true anymore? What if the cost of individuality is really going towards zero? We can treat everybody individually. We can internally, externally. It changes quite a lot of the company basic assumptions. From reactive to proactive, how can we sort of like sell proactively? Instead of waiting for customers to come to us, we know who customers to contact and why. From firefighting to leading success. Then this and over or, like that. We have so many of these classic ors that we need to choose between cost efficiency and customer intimacy. But I claim that in the future, these are not that much more anymore sort of choices that we need to make. We can be both. And then if one certain cost of various tasks goes towards zero, what if does it mean that if we can do things on a daily basis that were traditionally done on a monthly basis or annual basis? And that is then like finally the kind of the homework that I always give is that what constraint that has been defining our business is not valid anymore. And there are a lot of constraints that we take for granted. Good. Then how I look finally is that boards need to understand that this is a full stack transformation. It's not about technology. It's not just about the data. We need those, but it's very much about people, mindset, processes, the choice of the paradigm that we want to go after. And then it's very much about the people. And I've already seen happening that in several professions, we actually have an issue with professional identity. We are removing the classic professional identities. Even our own business, software developer identity has changed drastically during the past couple of years. It's not about anymore writing the best lines of code because AI is writing those lines of code very effectively. Or like customer service agents, the ones who used to be heroes because they had the corporate memory, they knew how to handle the complexity. Now we've been solving those with technology, and suddenly we need to rebuild people's professional identity. And I think this people aspect is, in my opinion, really important for the boards as well, so that the organizations are helping people to rebuild their professional identities. And then I think that there's also good sort of like little templates that the board can sort of expect from the management to describe the change. And I would say that like describing not just the individual use cases, but what are the key changes? What are the KPIs that organization is going after? And are those KPIs hard or soft? Can those be tracked and measured? And finally, I would say that boards need to ensure that there's enough capabilities and success factors. Business owners especially wanted to go on a mission, and day-to-day change agents. Then all the others are important as well, but I would say these two are the most important success factors going forward. And my final message is that this will be a hard journey. So in addition to demanding and expecting from the management, the boards also should support. And I have one CEO who's been part of doing this kind of transformation, and he once said to me or asked from me, Tuomas, why is it so that when I most need the support, I least get it? When I least need it, I mostly get it. And I think then both need to understand that it's a struggle, and there's also the management also needs support and encouragement. Good, thank you from my side.
Thank you so much, both to you, Thomas, for so many interesting points of views and so many reminders that there's a lot of things we need to consider and change, and also to Mats and Henrik for a fabulous summary of the way we look at disruption, that we are still quite good at the abrupt ones, but we're less good at the gradual ones. And now we like to hear from our audience. So here's a poll. So we want to ask you a couple of questions. The first one is, how is your board guiding your company on the AI impact? Is it with sufficient ambition? The second one is, have you linked your AI impact to your overall business strategy? And the third one is, do you have a clear understanding of where you actually are in the progress of AI with your business? So we'd love for you to make a quick vote on where you are in terms of your businesses, and we'll look into that. And I know we have a broad range in this group, so we will also look forward to hear a bit more around how people are working with it. So I'm waiting for a couple of more seconds for you to vote, and then I'm going to close the poll. So I'll close the poll in 5 seconds. And then we will see where we are. Okay, I'm closing the poll now. And I'm sharing the results. Okay, so maybe I'll start with you, Thomas. If you take can you see the poll results?
Yes.
So if you take the first questions, our board has guided our company on AI impact, and you see kind of where the results are, what's your reflection?
I'm actually rather positive about this. Of course, there's room to improve, but I think that okay, there's fully agree. I kind of that's maybe sort of understandable, but I think that this very much also maybe a little bit aligns also with my own thinking. I think this is actually even slightly more positive view than what I was expecting, because quite often the boards are kept quite far away from the AI initiatives, and especially the kind of the impact and the ambition related to it. Quite often what I've seen and heard is they're very technical or very program driven, that this is how we run the program, but not about the actual business impact or what is the kind of change that we are going after. So
Thank you. So if we take question number 2, Mats, we have linked AI impact to our overall business strategy, which is actually slightly more positive. What's your reflection on this one?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, I think it's really important, of course, that we start thinking carefully about what AI means for our business and for our overall strategy. And I'm a little surprised, actually, that it seems to be two different types of companies here. The ones that have not really come to this position yet, but some who have actually done it. So I would be very curious to hear more about the details, how they have done it and what they have focused upon. But basically, I mean, what I will come back to here is really that probably we cannot address all aspects of AI. That would be far too much. The important thing is to choose a number of things where we really try it out, and we try all the way to see, will it actually have the impact that we are assuming. Instead of trying to do a little everywhere, it's better to go all in for a number of specific actions and try them out so that we can see if we are actually correct.
Thank you. And Henrik, for the last one, our understanding from the board on where are we? And for me, it's super interesting. I'd like to hear your view that we were quite high on the strategy linkage, but we don't really know where we are. What's your perspective?
I think this is the other two were more positive than I expected, and this I would say is more realistic. And the question is, it's really hard to have a clear understanding of where you are in the progress when you're acting in uncertainty. You don't know where it's going. So I guess this is maybe a realistic view in it. The question is whether you do something about it, as we did. If you do experiments, if you try out different business models. But I think it's very important that you try to view it from a business point of view, so you don't get stuck in technology part of it. You have to do that as well, but the business point of view is where the biggest change is going to be, new business models and so on.
Thank you so much. So if I can ask Fernanda to bring our information about the breakout up.
Absolutely. I'm just going to share my screen.
And let me see.
You see my screen?
Yes. So now it's time to discuss, and we'd like for you to agree a chair to lead the discussion and a vice chair, do a short introduction, and then discuss the results from the poll. What one shift do you believe your board needs to make to be more future ready, and what stands in the way? So select and share board practices that you're using to actually get your understanding and your arms around how you can be a more proactive board and actually understanding and following this. And then we'll come back and share it jointly. So you are now placed in different breakout rooms, and this is also an opportunity for you to network, because this is part of what we're doing here. So we'd love for you to also network. Do make sure that you also link up with each other over LinkedIn and keep in contact. We are not that many board members yet that is actually ambitious around this topic. So I think it's really important that we support each other. Now, I will open the rooms and we will bring you back after 15 minutes or 12 minutes probably, and then that will happen automatically. All have a number of things, and you shared now, Lasse, a couple of examples, and we had a discussion yesterday where we actually asked everybody to let us know with a bit of hand waving. Have you ever actually asked a Gen AI, ChatGPT, a Copilot or something, anything before you go into a board meeting? And we had a 95% hand raise. And maybe we can do the same here. Have you ever asked anything before? Right. And what we actually say is, then you already have AI on your board. You just didn't think about it. So now we just need to move forward to think, how can we use it much more intelligently? And how can we use it so we share with each other on the board? And Thomas, I think you are probably one of our trailblazers. So maybe you can share a bit more. How do you you shared a bit how you're using it, but also how do you encourage and engage the rest of the board in the usage of AI for the board work? Can you share something on that with us?
That's a good question. But actually, I think that actually during this, when we discussed about these policies, I was actually thinking, and I haven't implemented this, but I actually now think that I will implement a policy that everybody needs to use AI, because typically policies are always saying that what you don't use and what you can't use. And I think I will probably change it more now that we expect that everybody to use, and then share the kind of share the kind of how one used, and that way get actually a little bit of like traction. So I think that also my learning has always been that the kind of the so-called change resistance is typically about like not just knowing exactly how to do the last inch of the work. So even showing like these are a couple of examples that I used, or these are a couple of examples how you can use it, probably makes it easier. So actually, now that I think it probably makes sense to create a sort of like maybe a half a dozen or dozen examples to give people the first prompts or the first options what to do, and that maybe then sort of like again kickstarts the change.
I think that's the role model thing, especially from the chair, is fantastic. I, however, across all of my board work on listed and private companies, I'm kind of thinking that it's more rare that it's actually the chair that has this knowledge. So we come back to this thing about speaking up at the board and actually just saying exactly what you said now. I don't expect everybody to be super good, but can we just share how we're using it and what we have found out of that so that we can get that thing going? Let me see, Henrik, are you still here? No.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, so can you share just a bit also around practices from our disruption research that you found that were making a difference?
When it comes to specific AI, well, first of all, the practice of collaboration that we mentioned before, and the safety that you already been in is when you do experiments, when you do things will fail. And you cannot have a working relationship when you have a management that is afraid to share failures. So we need to see failures as learnings. It's about learning to bike, but with AI now. And no one expects you to read or to understand how to bike without trying it. And then you will fall a couple of times, and that must be okay. So you need to have this working relationship between the board, in the board, and in between the board members, and also between the board and the management.
An excellent question, I think, that gave us a lot, and I've asked on several of my boards, and that is not to ask, I mean, we are asking, of course, about the progress and the experiments and all of that, but I actually also asked, how does the sharing look like? How do you share? Do you share within your business areas? Do you share across professions? How do you share? And that actually brought up a lot of good things, actually also bringing up the management to be much more aware, and that they had a lot of sharings within professions specifically. This has been fantastic. I think I need to ask Fernanda to take the last minute to actually conclude.
Absolutely. Just need here to put up the final slides. Thank you so much for an amazing discussion. And we would love to continue this discussion in our training program. So we have a training program starting now very soon. We have some people here that have done the training, like Lars. Thank you so much for mentioning it. So what we do in this training, we have 26 lessons online in 6 different modules. So we kind of go through that little house that I showed in the beginning of our session here. We have an AI that you can test your knowledge, what you just got in. It's a simulation. So you go in and you simulate a boardroom discussion with this AI. You get feedback, so you can really talking about experimenting and testing out. And then what we have is several different kind of these sessions like we just had today. So this is kind of the first open session for this program, but the other sessions are then for the participants. So we would really, really encourage you to join. Just send me an email if you're interested, or go to the website and register. Coming up next, here in September, on the 25th, we have a really, really nice event with Jane. She's the director of finance at the We Mean Business Coalition, a real materiality expert. And I just love to listen to her present. It's just so, so good. There's so much knowledge in there. So I would really encourage you to join on the 25th of September. And you will see here already that we have here, now we're talking about AI, and now in a few weeks from now we're going to talk about sustainability. And then how do we connect these? Well, that's what we are talking about on the 15th of October, on a session between innovation and sustainability and AI. So this is a lot what we talk about, not, and very much to the point of the presentation from Mats and Henrik, these are disruptions, not separate issues, but that we also need to be able to integrate from a board level. So you are very, very welcome to join us for the training and for the upcoming sessions. Thank you so much for our presenters for making this session possible. It was really, really good. Thank you so much for all of you for being here. The work that we do, this is a nonprofit. So we keep looking for partners that want to collaborate with us, to sponsor us, to support our work. But also a very big thank you to the other board networks that collaborate with us and are supporting us in this kind of building this Nordic ecosystem. Thank you so much to all of you, and please keep in contact.